let me start with the pass interference. Look, if there's obvious pass interference in a review and you're not overturning the call, then why are we even going through this exercise? They need to take this back out. It's ruining my viewing experience. And what everybody said coming into the season was like, oh, good. Well, what's going to happen on Hail Marys? Well, we know nothing. What's going to happen on deep passes where they're hand fighting? Well, we know now nothing. What's going to happen if there's obvious pass interference? What's going to happen? Are they going to overturn it? Certainly they will. No, they won't. When Al Riveron is in there and he's like one of those, Sam, Al Riveron to me is like one of those like crazy MLB umpires that says every umpire umpires perfectly in every single game, which is by definition impossible. You can't be perfect. Nobody's
Right.
perfect at any. It's stupid. But Al Riveron, man, ever since he took over for Dean Blandino, the whole officiating crew has sucked. You never know. That 5 minutes ago, I mean, a pass would be called incomplete. 10 minutes later, the same exact situation would pop up in another game, and suddenly it's a completion. It's just mind-numbingly stupid. But one thing we know for sure is they do not like overturning this pass interference.
Yeah.
And in fact, this rule was put into place so that the offenses could progress. What ends up happening is they go to review and they end up taking a bunch of they end up calling pick plays more than they used to. So it's actually helping the defense. Oddly enough, this pass interference reviewable, it's helping the defense. So I hate it. I hate everything about it. It's ruining, not ruining, but it's decreasing my viewing pleasure. I have to watch more stoppages of play, more reviews that are pretty obvious on film that there are pass interference plays that aren't overturned because it's not quote unquote egregious. I can't stand it. And Al Riveron, you suck.
Well, it just slows everything down, man.
It slows it
makes
down.
the game.
Yeah.
And, I'm a firm believer in momentum and stuff. And when you start to have a drive going and then you just have to stop, and especially when you know it's not going to get overturned because they don't want to just make the refs look like donkeys all the time.
Yes.
So, it's supposed to help, but it's really not doing anything except for slowing the game down.
Agreed.
And yeah, it does mess up the experience of sitting down and watching a game when, they're just going to throw the thing every time and have the review, but it's never going to get overturned. Yeah. They started doing that with some other sports where they tried stuff and then they ended up taking it away because the pace of play just, starts to get all thrown out of whack. So I kind of hope they review this again, at the end of the year. It's like, yeah, all right, we need to choke this back. Yeah.
Instant replay existed like in the 80s and 90s, and then they ripped it out for over a decade because of that. It was causing too many stoppages of play. So then they brought it back, but the coaches have to initiate, and they only get a couple challenges a game, and that's included in the pass interference stuff. But what you get is inside 2 minutes of each half. When it goes to booth review, we're getting like 2 or 3 pass interferences plus, because everybody didn't really play in preseason, we're getting a lot more sloppiness. So we're seeing a lot more, in my opinion, from what I can remember, I'm seeing a lot more flags than I'm used to seeing. It's just like, guys, for crying out loud. Like it was fine last year, aside from one play in the NFC Championship game, and that's a bummer. It's a huge bummer. But now it's ruining the experience for everybody. Like, I think it was a little bit of an overreaction by the NFL. I say this, I think it was probably worth the experiment. But please, for the love of everything, for the love of my viewership of the NFL, please take this away. It is awful. It's just awful.
Yeah,
and it's really embarrassing when you see down the field like a defensive player or an offensive player wrestle somebody else down. And they're like, well, it doesn't meet the definition of egregious. It's not egregious. Well, what the hell is the definition of egregious? Like if you're impacting the player, if you're hooking a wide receiver, or if you're a wide receiver and there's a defensive back going up for an interception, and you obviously grab his shoulder pads and throw him down, and it's not being overturned, then the whole spirit of this thing is not being administered the way that the rule makers made it. And if they can't come to that conclusion, then screw it. Screw the whole thing. And, in a perfect world, nobody would ever make any poor decisions. But I thought the NFL referees did a really good job. Like, I think they do, in terms of referees in sports, I think they do as good or better than anybody else. There's a lot of stuff to take care of on that field. And I just, you could call holding on every play. Just like, in basketball, you could probably call a carry more on every play if you really wanted to get down to it. You could probably call a little bit more moving screens, but you got to keep the game moving. And I think the NBA refs do a good job. I think the NFL refs do a good job. What happened was there was a really nasty non-call from Los Angeles and New Orleans, and we all see it on slow motion, and from that angle it looks awful. If you saw it in real time, it looked pretty bad, but it's not as bad as the slow-mo stuff. And so when you start looking into all that, it shouldn't have been in a pass interference, yes, and I wish it was, because then I wouldn't have to deal with this.
Well, yeah, and there's human element, man, and there's going to be human error and all that stuff that goes for one team or another, and that's just part of the game. You don't have robots out there. Even if you did have robots, it wouldn't solve it. It's just part of the game. And I agree with you. The NFL has done a much better job now that they actually have refs that don't have to have like weekday jobs. Once they finally went to like salaried refs, and you don't have an insurance agent out there on, Sunday that, because I remember, Gooch's dad used to work with an NFL agent.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, an NFL ref that would like work Monday through Friday, fly out Friday night, and then, is there Saturday, and he's reffing, how can this guy, be the greatest at what he's doing when he's, working 7 days a week, basically.
Yeah. Like Hockey Lee for years was a lawyer. It's like you're practicing law, and that's a pretty time-demanding job, and then you come out, and he was one of the best referees for a while. But I agree with you. It's just a goofy thing. I hate it, and I hope the NFL kiboshes it or kiboshes it. I call it kibosh. I hope they kibosh it in the offseason, because it's no bueno.